Welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are the official news channel for CARE, which stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. We are focused on the Earth and all of its inhabitants, and we talk about what we call the real news. Because if you haven't noticed, there's a lot of people saying a lot of stuff out there, but a lot of it's not making sense, and the stories are not matching up. And that's because the people at the top that used to disseminate all this information, used to kind of go down the ranks, are no longer there. And so what you have is mayhem. You have a lot of people trying to lead in this world right now, but there is no real leader. And all of it centers around money, and governments don't have money, and that's when these narratives get really, really wonky. So we're here to break down that information for you. And we have a newscast that is released through our online distribution platform at unitednetwork.tv. And our newscast currently comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you want more information on that, go to unitednetwork.tv and you can learn how you can sign up. But for today, this podcast, it does a few different things. It highlights some of the stories that we cover on the newscast. And that includes local stories that are brought to us through our field messengers. We have stories about the new Earth and what to expect and how to live in the new Earth. I know we're all real excited about that. We have regional stories, and these may be headlines that you've heard here and there, but we try to go one step deeper and explain the story behind the story. And then we have what we call our World Situation Report. And that is information that I promise you will not get anywhere else. We talk about stuff that's happening on this planet. We talk about things that are happening in other dimensions and different planes. And we call all of this the multiverse. And you may be asking yourself, well, how do you guys have access to this? We have access to the highest security clearance on the planet. Higher than governments, higher than your secret government programs and space programs and all of that stuff that you may have heard interviews about in the past. We have the absolute highest security clearance. And the information that we present may be a little bit surprising to you, especially if you've been watching alternative media, mainstream media, but I encourage you to stick with us because if you are willing to have an open mind, and I know that's a big ask for a lot of people. We have been trained to be in these little groups, we put little labels on ourselves and we don't cross over and we don't talk to one another and we are what we are, end of story. But if you're willing to take off your label and go down some rabbit holes and really start searching for the truth, I promise you will find it and we will help you get there. Think critically. Don't just believe somebody because they wrote an article on it or they have a podcast on it. Don't just believe me and what I say and what we talk about on the news. Do your own research. This is how you're going to grow. This is how you're going to learn. Okay. Before we get into the stories that we talked about on Friday's newscast, we had a graphic that was posted to our Telegram channel. I just want to read this to you because it really puts things into perspective as to how manipulated we have become as a society, okay? This graphic, it's really more information, but it says, do you know at the top? And then it says this, in the 60s, the KGB did some fascinating psychological experiments. They learned that if you bombard human subjects, that's what they think of us, human subjects with fear messages nonstop in 2 months or less, most of the subjects are completely brainwashed to believe the false message, to the point that no amount of clear information they are shown to the contrary can change their mind. Isn't that incredible? It puts into perspective what our whole media is all about. It's that, combined with images we see on, radio, TV. It's not just the news. They kind of give us the storyline behind it and, whatever the official narrative is. But we see this in our advertising. We are just inundated with this. And they did a really good job. I mean, let's just face it. The bad guys in charge or who think that they're in charge did a really good job in brainwashing our entire society. But the time for that is over. We are entering into a light age, a light timeline. And in this timeline and in this age, only the truth will prevail. That's it. You don't get to lie to people anymore because we can sense it. If someone is telling a lie or if they're telling the truth, that's a frequency. And you have the ability to discern based on what's already in your body, the way God, source, creator of the universe created you, what's right and what's wrong, what's truth and what's false. So I just wanted to read that to you because it really does put things into perspective, right? Well, let's continue breaking down their narrative and hopefully giving you some good things to focus on. Here is the rundown for Friday, October 27th, 2023. It's time to talk about our field messenger reports. So field messengers are really the heart and soul of what United Network News is all about. We believe in you guys, and we believe you tell your story better than someone else, like some sort of correspondent for NBC News, ABC News, coming into your town and telling the people what's happening there. We think you can tell the story because you care about your community and you care what happens to it. So we rely on you guys to give us the local news. Now, if you want more information on how to become a field messenger, you can go to unitednetwork.news, and under the field messenger tab in the main navigation at the top of the website, we've got examples, we've got different categories and topics that you can discuss, and information on how you submit your reports. But our first field messenger report today comes from Mwanda Michaels. He is from Eastern Uganda. And it's a very simple story, but it's a very beautiful story. And his community is celebrating because the local farmers had some training. I'm assuming they didn't really dive into exactly what they were talking about, but they're learning new things, right, to benefit their community. And then afterwards, they just had a small community celebration. And there was singing and dancing. So often we think that parties, let's just call this a party or celebration, has to be like this big thing. And, you got to plan everything out. Not really. Like you should just, you should have seen the video. Hopefully you will, go back and watch the field messenger report because these were just people like, hey, this is something to celebrate. You don't have to have a big to-do. That just causes more stress. You can have a quote unquote party anytime for little to no reason at all. But this was a great reason for them to celebrate. So we got to, kind of be a fly on the wall and see what they did. So that was awesome. And our second story this is also a really highly visual story, you guys, but I still want to tell you about it. It's about a festival that took place in Italy. And this is from Maya. And she did a really good job providing us a ton of information. I think she did her research for this for sure. But it's called the Cori World Folkloric Festival. And I did a little bit of research on this as well because I was like, oh, this is really cool. So she showed us all this different video of different performances of different types of, dances. And I didn't see any singing, but they're in traditional, I'll say costume. That's probably not the right word, but garb, for whatever they're, trying to display. You had like more authentic Mexican dancers, and then their beautiful flowing skirts. And there was just, a ton of different people doing different folklore dances from their part of the world. In fact, I read that there were over 300 artists, or at least this festival typically brings in about 300 different artists, performers all over the world, and that the entire event can take up to 2 weeks, which I thought was interesting too. This wasn't just like a one-night performance. Again, basing it, based on what the website had to say about it. Both of those stories, great ones to check out. In fact, if you go to our Telegram group for field messengers, which you can find at unitednetwork.news/connect. You can find all of the links to all of our resources there. You can watch these for free. You actually don't need to have a membership. If you want to watch the entire newscast and all of the World Situation Report, that's when you need a membership. But if you just want to watch these videos, they are available for free, and the links to them are posted in that Telegram group. let's talk about the new Earth now, because that's so much better than talking about what mainstream and alternative media are talking about, because they just want to focus on the gloom and doom. But where we are going as a people, as a planet, is absolutely beautiful. And in this segment, we try to kind of give you a heads up on some of the cool things that are happening on our planet, as well as ways you can help prepare yourself for this beautiful new Earth that we're creating together. So we have an interview with a nutritional expert. Her name is Ara Wiseman, and I talk with her about maintaining your youthfulness. So here's the thing. If you don't already know this, time is a construct. It is a 3D construct. Now, right now, we are in the 3D. Our planet is third dimensional, right? However, that is changing. We are actually going from 3D into 5D. You actually don't go to 4D, that's kind of a middle ground. You go to 5D, and things are very, very different in 5D. There is no such thing as time in the fifth dimension. And if there's no such thing as time, that makes you wonder, what about our age, right? No one likes to grow old, and the whole idea of growing old gracefully, I think most people would be like, if I could stay younger, that would be amazing. And this is not necessarily a vain thing. This is I want to feel good. I want to be there for my family. I want to be able to do the activities that I always love to do, right? So we talk with Ara about how to maintain your youthfulness while we're still here as we're making this transition. Because honestly, guys, we need everybody on their A game. If you are listening to this now, that is not by accident. You are part of the restoration plan, and we need you in your best form. So some of the stuff that Ara talks about, we've heard before, right? We've heard people tell us we need to eat our greens. We know that we're supposed to get enough sleep. She also talks about reconnecting with the earth, which is something that we don't hear a lot about. The term is called grounding, right? So just taking your shoes off and spending 15 minutes walking on dirt or grass or the beach, the sand, that is so good for your body. It totally changes the makeup of your cells if you've ever seen it under a microscope. So again, these are just some ideas. And of course, if you want to listen to the whole thing, I encourage you to do so. So we have that interview with Ara. And then we have a couple other stories that tie into rebuilding our planet and thinking kind of outside the box on how we can improve things. The first is about recycling wastewater. So the University of Idaho, which is in the United States, they found that you can actually extract what's known as phosphorus, which, if phosphorus exists in water bodies like the sea or a river or something like that, it is considered a pollutant. But if you extract that out of the water body and you infuse it with a soil enhancer, which is called biochar, it's actually amazing for soil. So not only are we helping the water by extracting it, but we're also helping the soil by combining it with something else. Now, biochar, what that is, it's incinerated organic matter. That's kind of the official description for it. But it alone improves soil health, and it reduces greenhouse gases and some things like that. But we found, again, combining it with phosphorus does even more, which is great, right? 2 for the price of 1. And our final story that we talk about is part of the new Earth. Now, this isn't going to work for everyone, okay? But I think this is a really interesting story. It's about elephant dung paper. You know what I mean when I say dung, right? So a Sri Lankan manufacturer has figured out how to do this, and they make handmade paper from elephant dung, elephant poop paper, if you want to think of it that way. It is produced locally, and it's shipped to 30 countries. Now, it's processed, but not like in a bad processing way, okay? So, it's important to know what they're actually doing with this. So it involves drying the dung, then they boil it, they blend it with different things, and then they sanitize it. And they actually use margosa leaves to sanitize it, which, again, completely natural. It's a leaf, no chemicals or anything like that, and they make it safe for use. So I know when you first hear that, it might be like, why Why would I do that? But again, it is helping their area of the world. It's helping them. They're making money from that. And they also give back, which is beautiful as well. So they take a portion of the sales and they donate it to these sanctuaries where they have elephants that are considered quote unquote elderly or disabled. So it benefits those elephants and helps them with the care that they need, which is absolutely beautiful. So, hey, holidays are coming up. Elephant dung paper, anyone? In our regional news, there's a few stories that I want to go over. We had a couple stories in Friday's newscast that were about illegal immigration and the impact that this is having. Now, I know this is a hot button issue, okay? But when you really look at this, it shouldn't be a huge political issue. And this is definitely not a right versus left issue. A lot of migrants or immigrants have come into multiple countries without any kind of checking, without really knowing where they're at, checking backgrounds, keeping families together, people doing it illegally in a lot of different ways, bringing drugs. It's a huge mess. It's not just a mess in the United States. We hear about it all the time. I mean, our border wall is completely open for anyone that wants to come through. And that is a fact. And the people that are supposed to be in charge of it, their hands are tied because orders are coming from much higher than them to do this. And people are trying to speak out and they're trying to put things on social media. I think it was, like a few weeks ago, Elon Musk. I don't know which number Elon Musk that is because I think there's like 13 of them running around right now. But one of them was actually talking to someone at the border and trying to show people what is actually happening, okay? It's not just happening in the U.S., but it's everywhere. So we ran a story about Pakistan and how they are creating deportation centers around the country. They are now requiring a lot more visas. They are capping the amount of money that you could take out of the country, right? So that's interesting. But all of this is causing all these demonstrations and riots and protests. People are upset, Also, we ran a story about Spain. They have seen a 55% increase in undocumented arrivals by sea. So this article was talking about how they are planning to house people, up to 3,000 people, I think they said, in military barracks, hotels, and hostels. They don't want to do that longer than 3 months. But let's look at the backstory with this here, okay? Because we had people very high up that were giving out these orders with no idea of how it was going to be controlled. And that's the whole point, guys. This was never, ever to help people. Please understand that. Because I think we all want to help people. This was about completely throwing off economies and social structures and everything, housing, completely putting everything in disarray. So the people have to rely on the government for everything because the government is destroying everything. So that's what this is about. This isn't about not wanting someone of a different skin color or whatever into your country. This is about how do you support it? They didn't care. When they opened up the floodgates, they did not care how we paid for it. They wanted everybody to go down. They wanted businesses to die, small businesses, the middle class to be gone. Right? Because they could deal with the rich people and they could deal with the poor people. But the people that cause them the most headache are the middleman, okay? The middle class, which most of us fall into. So this is an issue. Countries around the world are facing this. And the reason why this is coming up in the news right now is because they have no money. They have no money. They can't help but talk about this stuff because everything is falling apart. And we've talked about that on the news. All governments are broke. All world governments are broke. And they're trying to find money, and they can't. So you're going to see more stories like this. Now, the good news is there is a plan for humanity. And I'm not talking about crazy white hat stuff. Trump is not running around saving babies, okay? But there is a plan for humanity and a plan to get money and goods and other things and basically rebuild this whole damn structure. Excuse my French. We have to rebuild it because it is so broken and it was never set up for our benefit. Okay? So that's the illegal immigration, everything that's going on. And then we had a story, this is heartbreaking, about a country in West Africa. It's called Gambia, if you haven't heard of it before. And there were a bunch of deaths of children as a result of them taking cough syrup, which, oh my gosh, I don't know, really pulls at my heartstrings. I have 4 children of my own. Have I given them cough syrup in the past? Yes, I try not to do it anymore, but this could have happened to anyone. But now there is a lawsuit for the deaths of these 70 children, which, by the way, they were ages 5 and younger. And they took this cough syrup, and they later found out it was really high in toxins, so the toxin level was really high. And it happened to be manufactured by an Indian company called Made in Pharmaceuticals. So there are 19 families now that are involved in this lawsuit, and they are not only suing Made in Pharmaceuticals, but they are also suing Atlantic Pharmaceuticals because they imported the drugs. And they are also naming people in the government. They want the Gambia Medical Control Agency to admit their failure, which it is an obvious and blatant failure on their part. The good news with this is that this has already led to a recall of multiple medications. They've also suspended Made in Pharmaceuticals. And apparently this came from the Indian government. Now, this does not mean that the Indian government has changed their ways, because all governments are run by puppets that report to somebody else that does not have good intentions when it comes to humanity. So I'm not saying that the government has made a sudden turn and now is for helping people. That is not the case. They were probably under a lot of pressure, or they just couldn't control it anymore. And they thought that this would be enough, but it's not enough, is it? Because 70 children died. And so this happens a lot in countries that we don't hear about here in the West. So I'm really glad some of these articles are coming to life, because they can't get away with this anymore. This is absolutely horrible. A couple more stories I wanted to share with you. First is a story about lead and cadmium making it into chocolate. And this isn't just one chocolate company. This is supposedly a bunch of different companies that produce chocolate goods, if you will. And this is from a report from Consumer Reports. They said they tested 48 products and 16 had high amounts of these heavy metals in them. And they said that all of this came from stores that you and I would probably shop at. So Walmart, Target, Trader Joe's. They said Nestle, which I don't know if Nestle has their own store, Starbucks, right? And they are encouraging people to sign this petition, yada, yada, yada. So here's the question, though. Why is this story running now? Because they have been poisoning our food for a very long time. I think part of this is a soft disclosure, right? But then all of it, think of the timing. And this is what you should think about when you see any news article out there. What is the timing of this article? What is coming up very soon, at least here in the West, that involves chocolate? We are now at the end of October. In a few days, we have a quote-unquote holiday, which probably isn't the best holiday, but it's still here, guys, called Halloween, right? And everyone's buying chocolate. And everyone is looking at chocolate, and, we're looking for horrible things in the chocolate. Do we give this to our kids? Do we not? Is there a syringe in the bag? You've heard all of those horror stories in the past. Well, I question the release of this right now, because the headline, I actually went to Consumer Reports, their website, and their headline for this report they did is this. Get this. It says, a third of chocolate products are high in heavy metals. Dun, dun, dun. I mean, seriously, talk about causing fear. Now, maybe you guys know, if someone wants to do some research, let me know who owns Consumer Reports. Let's follow the money. I bet we can trace it back to a really big, cabal company who is now trying to cause fear because our kids are going out and going trick-or-treating and getting chocolate. How much do you want to bet? Okay, our next story is also connected to Halloween. I guess it's a little bit of a Halloween show, guys. And it is about a group who calls themselves the Mombies instead of zombies. The Mombies. And this is a group of mothers and grandmothers. They are based in Connecticut, but I'm thinking that after this story gets out, because it's been reported in multiple places, that you're going to have Mombies in multiple cities. But it's kind of beautiful because they are coming together and they dress up. It's full garb, So you really need to watch the video. Maybe you can, just search for it online and find some of the videos. But they do these kind of flash mob things where they have these little dances, and it's like they're just kind of gathered around, and then all of a sudden someone starts dancing next to you, and then the other person starts dancing, and then it's a flash mob, right? And they've done this for 8 years. Now, the reason they're doing this is because they are trying to raise money for cancer research. In fact, they have raised to date more than $170,000 for cancer research. Now, on the Telegram threads, we did get some feedback about this, that why, are we kind of celebrating this? Because we know that there have been multiple cures for cancer for many, many, many years. That is a man-made disease, but there are a ton of natural ways to cure this. You do not necessarily, unless you choose to do this, you do not have to do something that harms your body even more, like a chemotherapy or radiation. Okay? You spend a lot of money to do that, don't you? And the pharmaceutical companies really benefit that. So that's part of the whole medical mob, okay? But here's the thing. It's really about the intention here. Did they have to do this? No. But they have a heart for helping people. And I really think that those type of people, those are the doers. And in the new earth, those are the people that are really going to achieve big things. So we could pick apart where their money is going toward, but their heart is in the right place. And I really think that will be rewarded because they're trying to do good. And right now, most people think that's what you do. You give it to cancer research. They don't realize that, all the limitations with that, and that the money is probably not being used for what they say. And even if it is, there's so many restrictions on those researchers. Nobody wants cures to come out. They just want money, right? Because they make a heck of a lot more money poisoning us in other ways, and then giving us more, poison to try to fix the first poison they gave us. So, that's the whole medical industry right now. But I thought it was a really nice story. They're doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're having fun doing that. And I really do think the universe will reward them for that. In our World Situation Report today, Kimberly Gogan joins us from the Office of the Guardian. Kim is helping humanity transition into the light. It's not just a one-woman show. She has a lot of help. A lot of the people or beings helping her are not from this planet. That's a whole other conversation. But she's helping us, and she gives these updates and lets us know how things are going. And so with Friday's update, we've been talking about the deep state and the people that can't get it through their thick skull, that we are now in a light age. And we are not going back to the dark age that we were in for millions, I think even billions of years. It was a ridiculous period of time. We are not going back. Still, you have people that are trying to harm this planet and harm humanity in every way possible right now, including everything that is going on in Israel. Real people are dying. Absolutely, real people are dying. But the people at the top, it's a planned thing. It's a planned thing. And right now, what they're trying to do is bring in a whole bunch of lower astral beings to help them because they are losing. In fact, the war is over. The war between light and dark is over. The light has won, but the dark isn't coming. They're not coming to grips with this. Let's put it that way. And a call was made, not even by Kim, but higher up than Kim, to take down these people that are just blatantly in the way and blatantly trying to harm us. And so many, many deep state members, most of which you have never heard of before because they're that high up, are dying right now. They are going back to God, to Source, to Creator. And then it figures out what to do with these people because there's no room for them in the new earth. Absolutely not. We are moving forward with restoration. Either you are part of that plan or you just kind of do your own thing. But if you're going to harm innocent people, yeah, that doesn't stand anymore. And so that's exactly what they're doing. So the first thing we talk about in the World Situation Report is how we are starting to see sudden deaths, and that has nothing to do with COVID and the little jabby jab, okay? But we are seeing people, especially over in China, suddenly die. And these are forward-facing people, meaning they're like media people. You see them in the media. People take pictures of them and stuff. And so you kind of have to explain what happened to someone when they go, right? If they don't have some sort of body double or whatever to replace them with. And there's apparently a couple people that didn't make that list because we have 2 people that made headlines on Friday today. The first is the former Chinese premier, and it says he died suddenly. He was China's number 2 for the past 10 years. His first name was Li, so we'll just call him Li because I'm going to have a really hard time pronouncing the last name. It's Keqiang. So he died all of a sudden. How did that happen? And then we have China's chief epidemiologist. And he was all about the lockdowns, all the horrible stuff they did to people in China, and locking them up and not letting them out and, confining millions of people to their homes and to their cities and all that kind of stuff. So he suddenly died as well at the age of 60. His first name was Wu, and then the last name is Zunyu, Zun Yu. So we're starting to see this kind of stuff trickle out, and that's why we bring this up. Because I know it's difficult sometimes when something is said on the news and you're like, I can't see it. Well, this is starting to happen. So you can research a couple of those things that I just mentioned and look into it. Isn't it interesting that they just suddenly died on the same night, on the same day? Because there are people that are being taken out in droves right now because they are continuing to hurt people. And we're done with it. So we also talk a little bit about the war in Israel. Things are ramping up. We know that the Rothschild family has been in control of Israel, even the founding of Israel from the very beginning. And they are trying to call the shots still. You have probably heard of the Rothschild family before. It's a well-known cabal name. Let's just call them the cabal. And the latest with them, see, they don't have money they can give people because, like I said, everybody's broke. So they are resting on their laurels in any way they possibly can. So they have promised money in many different ways, and then those days have come and gone, and they haven't given out any money, and then they wait for some sort of an alignment to happen in the sky, and they come up with some new excuse, and they've been doing this over and over again, which is getting very, very old. The most recent excuse they have for keep going with the war in Israel, keep going, is that they have received communication from what they call the Immortals. That's right. And that they're on their way. They're coming to save them. And it's happening, quote unquote, soon. Soon. So if you don't know, this Saturday, so tomorrow, is a full moon. It is also another eclipse. And they believe that these immortals are going to come save them because of this eclipse. But that's not going to happen. Honestly, I'm starting to feel like this is Groundhog Day, because wasn't it just a couple weeks ago that first eclipse, they thought there was going to be a whole gaggle of like demons to come save them? That didn't happen either. But apparently someone misjudged. I don't know. Now they think it's this next eclipse that's going to happen. Yawn. Umbrella Military Corporation, for their part, is realizing that nothing is working. None of their little dastardly deeds that they do is turning out in their favor. And so now their plan, they want to create a terrorist attack. They want to do an attack on U.S. soil. But of course, it's not going to be Umbrella Military Corporation did this attack. They're going to blame it on whatever terrorist group that they probably helped start from the very beginning. They're going to blame it on them as a way to really ramp things up and to cause a bunch of fear, because fear helps these lower astral beings come and, take over our planet. This is what we need in order to bring them here to Earth. The problem is none of those lower astral beings even exist anymore. They are all gone. They went back to source, to God, the creator. End of story. No one is coming to save you. Still, they were under the impression that large dams here in the U.S. were rigged, which apparently for a time they were rigged to blow if someone wanted to push the button. Now, it wasn't that easy, okay? And it wasn't humans that actually did the rigging on this. But there were, at one point, there was a way to blow up dams. And so that's apparently what they were trying to do, obviously unsuccessfully, because no dams, the dam attack. There have been no dam attacks in that manner, right? But this also kind of ties into the mass shooting that happened in Maine, which we didn't talk about in our regional news. Let's go ahead and play this soundbite from the World Situation Report to give you an idea of the type of terrorism attacks that they're planning right now, which obviously could be related to smaller things that are happening in individual towns.
Now, Umbrella Military Corporation cannot quite figure out why nothing they're doing is working. They are desperately seeking a terrorist attack in the United States, with them, of course, being the terrorist. But in the news, it'll be insert jihadist here.
Right.
You know, I don't know if it would be Hezbollah or Hamas or who it would be that would have done such an attack. Now, one of the major ones that they thought they could have pulled off remotely was the fact that a lot of the dams in the United States are rigged. Mm-hmm. Now, they were not rigged by Umbrella Military Corporation. They were not rigged by human beings even. It was part of something that Marduk had put in place a long time ago in order to create an apocalyptic type event. So,
can I ask a question in general about dams? Because
sure.
I find this to be very interesting. Like, we thought we could fix Mother Nature and do Mother Nature better than Mother Nature does Mother Nature. So
Mm-hmm.
Are dams in general meant to be a weapon? Is that why we have dams in general?
Well, it's about hydroelectric power, which is,
okay.
There are many other forms of power which are greater than
Okay.
hydroelectric power. That's part of it. The other thing is, so I talk to you sometimes about, if you're feeling attacked or you're feeling a psychic attack, to jump in the water because it blocks those frequencies and those signals.
Right.
So part of the reason, and not all dams, but I would give you an example as in the Hoover Dam,
Mm-hmm.
are, they put a lot of laboratories underneath the water for that reason. It's not because they're concerned about a so-called psychic attack. They're concerned about frequencies that are emitted during transmutation of energy and those types of things getting out, sending off a scent. Of course, they don't want anybody to be able to utilize satellite technology to see
Mm-hmm.
what's going on inside those laboratories, because you can go down pretty far. You can go down satellites now, even just what's on the market and known to the public is at least 5 kilometers. And I know that they have them that go down even further, and they could figure out what's going on. So by building stuff underneath the water, they're able to conceal what they think some of their secret space program laboratories. That's the theory. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Hoover Dam would be one. For those of you that don't know, that laboratory underneath there was actually constructed by Tesla. They mention other locations of Tesla laboratories, but that one was the most secret laboratory right there.
Mm.
So no surprise, the fact that JP Morgan was actually one of Tesla's funders. And that's evident in one of the movies. I think it's Power Wars or something like that. And he is also the party that funded the building of Hoover Dam.
Right.
So real history is out there, guys. You just got to keep looking for it. Main dams that would have been affected had they been successful, they are no longer rigged.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been Parker Dam in Lake Havasu. It's actually it is the world's deepest dam.
Mm.
Believe it or not. You also had Shasta Dam. No surprise there, guys. Oroville Dam, Fort Peck Dam, Daniel Johnson Dam, New Bullards Dam, and the Folsom Dam, and Theodore Roosevelt Dam. So these were just a few that would have been targeted should they have figured out a way to trigger this remotely. They also have been going back to sites we've already been to, such as the laboratory under Lake Havasu. That's where Project Walrider originated, for those of you that don't know. And they were hoping to get some more advanced technologies. The one thing that I know that is clear is they are more concerned with losing power and control while still believing that the Rothschild family is still communicating with someone on the other side, and they're coming. They're on the way. So we got to please the masters or we'll become masters' food, in their mind. So they're really struggling, and they have been looking at different things also over the last 24 hours since this event happened or almost happened, to find a good pre-rigged scenario to cause massive havoc or to wreak massive havoc in the United States. Now, one way, and I'm going to say it's related because of the way the propaganda is in the news, is the story about the shooter in Maine.
Right.
So it's a tragic thing, and I'm not discounting that. But, there's a lot of unusual things being said in the mainstream media about it. It's they're constantly saying right now, there could be a gunman around any corner. Lock your doors. Don't go out. It doesn't even matter if you're not in Maine. It could be anywhere. It could, So when you see that kind of fear porn being thrown out there, you know that they are probably going to try to stage more events. No joy activities, no going to a bowling alley, do not have a good time, guys.
Right.
So this is about fear, right? This is the language that they speak. And remember, there's no such thing as coincidences. So the fact that there is this eclipse that is coming up that's supposed to bring in these evil beings that apparently are supposed to help them, in order to bring them in, what do they need? They need fear. All right. So while the details of everything that happened in Maine with that shooter are still a little sketchy, even the locals are saying things are not adding up. So we don't tell you this to be in fear, right? Because that is not our language. That is the deep state's language. But we tell you this so you can understand what their plan is. Okay. The other thing that we want to talk a little bit about, and Kim goes into more detail with this, is what consciousness is and the constructs. So consciousness constructs. Constructs is really just another name for program, because we're getting some comments on the threads about, we've been talking about dark matter, and dark matter is dissipating, the dark side of the universe, right? There's no beings in the, lower astral anymore. And so people kind of make fun of that sometimes, because if something bad happens, they're like, oh, well, I thought, the dark matter is gone. I thought the dark universe was gone. So Kim decides to break this down and to give a better understanding of what's really happening here. How can both things be happening at once?
First, I'm going to tell you about consciousness constructs. So we talk a lot about dark consciousness, and I know that there were people on the threads, which I saw the comments. Thank you very much. The dark consciousness is gone. The dark is gone. The dark matter is gone. The dark side of the universe is gone. Now, you have to understand, and then they laugh because, oh, it's back. It's not gone. I don't think they understand. Well, I know you don't understand, when you make a comment like that, that constructs are constructs. And what is a construct? Okay. You have base root light consciousness, and you have base root dark consciousness. You have base root light matter, light essence, light energy. you have base root, dark energy, dark matter, dark. So these are all different things. They're not the same thing. Now, attached to dark consciousness, you also had dark consciousness constructs. Now, it's kind of a way they trick the dial of destiny. So if you read the Bible or you read the Quran, or you are reading the Torah, whichever religion you are, there is always a story and prophecies about how we're all going to die.
Yeah.
We're always all going to die at the end of the book. It doesn't matter which book you're reading. And this in of itself is a construct in a program. So there is a consciousness, so to speak, attached to some of the events that are listed in Revelations, as an example. So if enough people are focusing on it, whether out of fear, or praying that it doesn't happen, and some people are praying that it does happen because it means the Christ is coming back, right? The Christ, Jesus is coming back. I mean, so there's a similar type prophecy in Islam for the Mahdi's return. Like, all these bad things are going to happen. Only the good people are going to stick around, and everybody else is going to die. So subconscious constructs would focus on things, as an example, Lucifer consciousness. So that is a construct within dark consciousness. That means that there's a whole program out there which could have been controlled by that being at one point in time, which anytime you mention that, brings that dark consciousness to you under that program. I know, interesting, isn't it? There's also one for Satan. There's one for Taoism. There is one for the Order of the Dragon. There's one for the, Order of the Black Sun as well. There are programs attached to these. But the ultimate puppet master was the Dark Overlord for all of the arms and legs of dark consciousness implants, which our planets have had, which are all our densities and all our planes have had, which you have had. And there's probably, a few hundred different types of consciousness constructs that feed an ultimate outcome and an agenda. Like the old Armageddon AI in the past. You want that, the Christ to come back? Now they'll twist your words too, because they'll come up with an anagram associated with the word Jesus, as an example. They would make it up as the joint equitensor, super hologram. I know, but they do because it's a way to mirror that consciousness into a dark agenda during the dark age. Does that make sense? You could legitimately be praying to Jesus or Yeshua or God or, Allah, or however you say it.
Mm-hmm.
And literally they'll take it, make it an anagram, create a subconsciousness construct for it. And before you know it, you're actually wishing for something dark. This is the implied consent program.
Yeah.
In various consciousness constructs that some of it just, once the plug is pulled on the program, it takes time to dissipate. Like you can't do it any faster.
Okay.
We can stop the bleed over, from remnants. Remember the puffy clouds we talk about? We can kind of stop the bleed over as much as we possibly can. But, some of these things are just going to take time to fade out. Sometimes it takes a couple days when you pull the plug. Sometimes it takes. So this this is all part of not only restoring Earth, this is part of getting rid of the remnants of the Dark Age. So just because someone declares that the Dark Age is over, which is a source thing, because only source, an anti-source could have, when it existed, would have agreed together to end an age. So it's nothing anybody else can do about it. So once that's done, that doesn't mean everything miraculously disappears. And I know sometimes it's hard for people to wait. It's hard for people to see other people suffering. It's hard for people to see wars going on. It's very, we're living in a turbulent time.
That is so true. I think we can all testify to that, how crazy our lives seem to be, how crazy the world seems to be. But understand that you are here for a reason. You are here at this time for a very specific reason. And maybe you know exactly what it is. And maybe you're still figuring that out. And it's okay. That's okay. But never stop wanting to know more. Do your research. Research some of the stuff we talked about today. Go down, some of those proverbial rabbit holes. Have an open mind. If you come to the party and your cup's already full, you're not going to get anything put in your cup. That's how this works. So have an open mind. We've all been lied to about so many different things. But if you come to the table knowing that you don't know everything, that's an understatement, then you're going to learn a lot. And we're here to help you with that. So if you enjoyed today's podcast, I would encourage you to share it with someone you care about who needs to know some of the stuff we're talking about. You can subscribe to us at unitednetwork.tv. That gives you on-demand access to all UNN newscasts, including our World Situation Reports, original series. We've got some great health and wellness videos. And I mentioned this at the top of the show, but please connect with us because we've got a bunch of different Telegram channels and there's different ways that you can reach out to us. So go to unitednetwork.news/connect. So that is our news website. And then there is a section on there to connect with us and has all of our links and great stuff there. Thanks so much for checking out The Rundown, sharing it with other people, and just you being you. This is The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.